we behave and how our emotions are. Certainly their capacity to suffer, be it emotionally or physically, seems to be pretty much equal to ours. I mean, they can be frustrated, they have fears, they enjoy things, they laugh, they show joy. So all that is certainly there. And therefore, to see them in these surroundings is particularly distressing. My belief is that most of the conservationists and concerned individuals, which for years have been going on about hunters going out there specifically to get their hands on babies to sell, mostly abroad, have missed the point. It's clearly not the issue in a sense that the hunters are out there to get the biggest piece of proteins, and most of the babies which reach the market are just a mere byproduct of the bushmeat trade.
Carl has secured a warrant to rescue Jackie from the restaurant at the park and has teamed up with Gary Richardson of Whisper. Armed wildlife rangers supplied by the government are on hand to supervise the rescue. Keeping chimps is illegal, but the law is rarely enforced. People here see no harm in having chimps as pets.
I mean, those chimpanzees, they've already been on those chains for 20 years. Huh? 20 years. If we put the proprietor of this place on a chain for 20 years, he would not survive. He'd go crazy. So these chimpanzees, they're very lucky that they still have their intelligence, that they've not gone crazy. So we can't leave them like this. But we cannot take them today because there are no facilities in Cameroon. We have to build them. But we must take this one because it's sick, it will die.
It's malnutrition, lack of vitamin A, lack of proteins, and in the last 6 months she has pretty much lost all her hair. It's a situation which obviously needs a resolution. If one continues to allow this deterioration to continue, then there's not much hope for these animals to survive. So we hope to be able to take her to a better home.
The manageress is angry. In her eyes, restaurant property is being kidnapped.
He's not here. We're going to take it just now, because if we leave it, if we come again, it will be finished, dead. But the hair will definitely grow back, and she will grow as soon as she gets the right diet and the right medicine. So we're hoping that with your help, we can make a better life for this chimp. I think we can. It's good. We thank you for your help. Okay. Thank you.
Life is so nice work.
Carl, have you got hold of it?
Yeah.
Every move is recorded for Whisper's publicity campaign, but Jackie is terrified by what's happening.
Watch my back.
The manageress is totally bewildered by what Carl and Gary are doing. She's determined to find out where Jackie is being taken. News of the raid has spread quickly, and the locals are furious at this unwelcome outside interference. Augustin Yumbi has been studying the habitat of chimpanzees and gorillas for the past 5 years. Jackie's owner calls him for help and insists Jackie hasn't been rescued, but stolen. Augustin sets off to try to sort things out. He already has doubts about the approach of the WSPA.
Je ne pense pas que la situation est aussi facile que le WSPA le croit. Parce que la vie des gens ici est complètement différente de celle qu'on voit par exemple en Europe et qui conditionne un peu les activités du WSPA.
Until recently, bushmeat, the flesh of wild animals, was only a part of the traditional local diet. Penetration of the rainforests by logging trucks has brought bushmeat right into the centre of the city. As recession hit the local economy, more and more people have taken up the bushmeat trade. No animal is spared the slaughter. Apart from monkeys and snakes, the meat of great apes, gorillas and chimps all ends up here. Back at Luna Park, Augustin discovers that Jackie's owner is deeply shocked by what Carl and Gary have done. He says Whisper have no right to walk in and take his animals away.
Je suis en état de choc parce que je ne comprends pas comment vous pouvez arriver dans un endroit et décider unilatéralement comme ça, sans avoir à discuter, sans avoir à même poser certains griefs à une personne, prendre un animal comme ça. Ça, c'est la première des choses, qu'on puisse discuter et qu'il me propose des solutions. Troisièmement, si je n'étais pas en mesure de répondre aux solutions qu'il me donnait, je leur aurais donné l'animal. C'est la manière, oui. C'est la manière. La manière n'est pas bonne. Ce n'est pas en faisant des actions d'éclat qu'ils vont sauvegarder les animaux, les chimpanzés. Oui. Mais moi, l'action de la WSPA me fait penser, n'est-ce pas? J'ai une image qui me vient en idée, qui me vient à la tête, n'est-ce pas? C'est celle-là, c'est celle d'une Afrique avec les animaux, mais sans les hommes.
Un grand zoo.
Voilà, c'est un grand zoo, en un mot.
Et par rapport à ça, quelle est votre réaction?
C'est la vision de l'Occident.
Oui,
et moi, particulièrement, je sais que nous ne sommes pas comme ça. Nous ne sommes pas des animaux, nous ne sommes pas des singes à qui on fait n'importe quoi.
Et qu'on
manipule, qu'on cherche à manipuler de n'importe quelle manière parce que certains l'acceptent telle qu'elle. Nous ne pensons pas être des grands singes.
He's a good guy.
But Carl and Gary press on with their campaign. The second rescue of the day is Makolo, a 4-year-old pet chimp who's been chained to a lavatory for 2 years.
Grab him a couple of bananas.
Pictures of the rescue are essential. Carl and Gary hope that if they explain to people how intelligent these animals are, they'll stop hunting them. Makolo joins Jackie at a temporary refuge, the Pasteur Institute, a research laboratory. Both animals will be tested for typhoid, malaria, TB, even measles. Great apes catch the same diseases as humans. They'll need to go into quarantine before joining other chimps and gorillas at a permanent sanctuary. Sadly, Jackie and Makolo can never go back to the wild. Their mothers were killed before they could teach them the skills of survival.
The Makolo is probably a pretty representative chimp for what generally happens when they end up in captivity. He was originally taken in by a French professor here who treated him as his child. He was allowed to sit on the table and so on, but then he had to leave, typical 2-year contract situation. While the present owner liked him, or gave the impression that he liked him, and obviously did play with him, and it appears they had a pretty good relationship together. The fact is, tied to a toilet, being a 4-year-old chimp is not the way to live. He was a very loving chimp, or still is. He immediately comes up to you and embraces you. So I felt a lot stronger about him than most of the others, because you felt he was asking for help. It was that tight hug, and I always felt horrible leaving him in that scenario. So maybe finally something is happening and he's going to go on to another life.
People have reacted strongly to what you're doing here. They say that Africans and Europeans have different attitudes towards animals.
Yeah, I mean, my comment to that would be, we have had the luxury of having pets and keeping pets as pets. Most of these people, you know, haven't got the luxury. They're trying to survive on their own. So keeping a pet is economic hardship, and therefore their attitudes towards the animals are, you know, to be seen in that context. No fight. Be nice to her, okay?
There's room for Jackie and Makolo at a sanctuary on the coast. But Gary and Carl know there'll never be enough space for all the chimps that can be saved. This may be an ideal solution for Jackie and Makolo, but the problem is far more complex and more serious than one or two captive chimps.
Je ne pense pas que l'approche utilisée par le WSPA soit la meilleure façon d'aider à la conservation des animaux. Parce que le fait de venir libérer des gorilles ou des chimpanzés, je ne vois pas du tout comment ça va changer les choses. Et cette approche me semble montrer que les gens du WSPA ne connaissent pas la situation qui existe au Cameroun.
For Augustin, the problem is linked to the survival of the rainforest itself. He's convinced the upsurge in the bushmeat trade is linked to the activities of the logging companies that dominate the forest economy. To understand the reasons for the slaughter of the great apes, he'll have to go deep into the forest. It's a journey into the unknown. These are logging routes that carved their way through what was once dense jungle, searching for precious hardwoods to sell on the European market. The roads are lined with shanty towns built by migrant workers following the timber trade. When all the valuable trees have gone, the loggers move on, leaving the workers behind with no jobs and no prospects. The logging companies have paid little attention to the destruction they've caused. And the logging trucks still keep coming. A single lorry carries timber worth up to £50,000. Far beyond these settlements, off any known maps, the logging routes drive deeper into the forest. These are the makeshift camps of the bushmeat poachers. The uncharted logging trails give them access to the primeval rainforests, home of the primates, the great apes. Franceville is typical. It's a small community of town dwellers turned poachers who've brought guns into the forest. These days they earn their living from the bushmeat trade. These gorilla skulls are the unmistakable hallmarks of what are now the killing fields for the great apes. Joseph has just taken an order for bushmeat from the driver of a logging truck. Joseph is the boss of Franceville. He used to own a small shop in town but went bankrupt when the Cameroon economy hit the rocks a couple of years ago. Now he makes his money killing gorillas for the bushmeat trade. He kills animals to order, cuts up the meat and packs it in bags for his customers. On a good week, he'll sell 10 bags like this. Some of the meat is destined for the markets of Yaoundé. Joseph is one of a new breed of hunter-traders that came with the logging companies.
The business of my work. We've come in the forest, not to destroy the forest as people say. we've come in the forest for a certain purpose, for hunting. We come outside like this to sell today. After sales, we buy our food, which can permit us live for a week again, and we'll go back in the forest. A monkey average 1,400 francs, 1,200 francs, 1,000 francs. For the gorilla, when it's fresh, let's say 10, 15,000 francs, 15,000 francs. And when it's dry, it's less, 7, 6, up to 8,000 francs. It is difficult to give you average because it depends on the size of any animal. It is not easy to give you the right average, except rough, from 10,000 francs. When I came in the village in 1990, I was trying to study the people whom I can walk in the bush. That old man, he's my personal hunter of the pygmies. I asked him, where is a reliable girl for me now? Where is one? So after that, after he showed me this one, this girl, I asked the girl, are you interested to be with me? She said, no problem. In 6 months' time, you will bear a child, if God permits. So, I believe everything nice. The Lord created the world, and He asked us to kill all the animals in the forest and eat. Any animal. If you want, like, for example, like monkeys, you see, please try and get me the small ones, this quality. We'll find it for you. If you are ready to buy the price, we shoot it for you. Black, this is our dog. I realized that the pygmies, they were very reliable for me. Because in the history of our history here in Africa, especially in Cameroon, we know that the pygmies live for hunting and know the bush better than us.
Joseph now lives amongst the Baka people who've inhabited the forest for countless generations.
Au village? À pied? Avec les quilles? And this is my goods. These are my goods I've carried like that. The monkey I told you that we've shot them. So they are good for us because as soon as we have difficulty to transport, when it's more than us, they help us to carry and bring it outside for goods. And we pay them. Yeah.
By tradition, the Baka are subsistence hunters, killing only what they need to feed themselves. Now they're part of the flourishing bushmeat business and have taught Joseph their age-old hunting skills.
My ambition of coming in the bush, not to admire the bush. I saw that the better resources of coming out of the economic crisis for myself is to come in the forest. If I hunt, I have my capital to go and settle in town. I will never remember the forest again.
Joseph reckons it'll take him 5 years to raise the £200 he'll need to start up again in town.
We don't have anything to conserve the food in the forest. The only thing we conserve is by drying it with a fire. We smoke it. There are people who don't like to eat certain monkeys. When they see like this, they will distinguish the one they don't like to eat, and that particular person will not buy it. So those who like to eat it will buy it, and for that they will remove the skin very well. It was like this. The name of the fusil, pardon. Carry a go, your animal and go. There's no need to find any bag. That's all. And if you can see another one, automatically I can still shoot it. You see, without removing this one. Because at times you shoot like this, you carry. You see a gorilla disturbing you, you cannot move. There is no way to do it. You want to put the cargo down, it refuses. Automatically, there's no need to say anything. You bend down and get it at once. They continue. So that's how they protect. That's how we do protect ourselves. This is a bag by itself. You have special ones, I mean larger ones than this here in the forest here. Larger ones like this. This is a medium one. But it's not the correct age of it. You can still take a picture out of it.
Earlier that day, on another hunt, Joseph had shot a much-prized silverback gorilla. He cuts off the feet and hands of the gorilla to show other hunters it belongs to him. As head of the family, this male had challenged the hunters and was shot. Without their leader, the family is unlikely to survive. The females won't be able to feed and protect their babies, and that means more orphans for the pet trade.
C'est là-bas qu'il y a tout son poids.
Killing any of the great apes is strictly illegal. But there's no risk Joseph and his helpers will be caught. The rule of law doesn't reach this far into the jungle. The gorilla was killed about 2 hours' walk from Franceville. Augustin arrives soon after the kill. The hunters are triumphant. The animal will fetch good money. And killing it means one less enemy in the jungle. It's a matter of kill or be killed.
Parce que dans le cas de la conservation au Cameroun, on dit par exemple que le gorille est une espèce protégée.
Protégée, oui, oui.
Hein, que normalement on ne doit pas la tuer. Mais qu'est-ce que vous pensez de ça?
Bon, en ce qui concerne le gorille, le gorille c'est un animal d'abord très féroce. Parce que moi je ne vois pas pourquoi il faut conserver le gorille. Parce que ça c'est un brut. Un gorille, pas seulement que nous sommes ici en brousse, au niveau des villages même, le gorille revient à détruire toute une bananeraie. Hein, pourquoi conserver celui-là? Ça c'est un faux. C'est inutile. Il est utile à l'homme à quoi?
Sinon, on ne pouvait pas conserver le gorille. Pourquoi? Parce qu'il ne nous ressemble pas. Vous voyez la tête, si vous voyez la tête de gorille, ça dépasse ma tête. Mes yeux sont clairs, je n'ai pas le poil ici, mais lui il a le poil ici. Hein? Si vous voyez le pont de gorille ici, là, ici jusqu'ici, ça n'a pas été plus large que la mienne. Donc quand j'ai regardé, bien sûr qu'il a des seins d'or comme moi. Ce n'est pas parce qu'il a des seins d'or comme moi qu'il doit me ressembler. Hein? Par exemple, je peux bien dire que moi, j'ai la peau noire. Le monsieur, s'il me ressemble, il a la peau, je peux dire jaune. Il me ressemble. On ne sait pas, on change les idées. Avec le gorille, en aucun jour, on ne sera pas en contact. Il est toujours en forêt, voire pour nous détruire si vous voulez. Ou bien on les détruit. Donc il faut détruire le gorille.
At camp, the gorilla meat is lightly smoked, the usual method for preserving bushmeat.
It's more sweeter than the animals in town. Yes. Extremely sweet enough. Even the fingers are sweet to eat. When you boil it very well, they are very sweet to eat. Yes.
In the poachers' camps, they don't have time for ecological arguments. For them, it comes down to basic economics.
Bon, madame, faire quand même ce commerce de gibier là, c'est quand même un travail très difficile. Quel message vous pouvez envoyer aux gens qui vous disent de ne plus, peut-être de ne plus chasser, de ne plus vendre le gibier? Quel message vous pouvez leur envoyer?
De moi-même, de ma part, moi, je préfère de lui demander là où il va me laisser, là où je dois vivre avec ma famille et mes enfants. Si il me trouve un travail ou bien là où je peux me placer à vendre mes petits marchandises, le commerce, quoi, là, pour me débrouiller, j'accepte.
Je ne suis pas venu détruire la viande parce que j'ai envie de détruire la viande. On ne peut non plus conserver la viande quand j'ai envie de vivre. Bon, si ils pouvaient chercher de bonnes mesures, de nous permettre à vivre vraiment, à s'occuper de notre vie, quoi, quotidien, pour qu'on ne pense plus à la viande, pour nous faire vivre, ça vaut la peine. On nous dit que nous détruisons la forêt, on ne détruit absolument rien, c'est plutôt eux, parce qu'ils abattent les forêts, ils abattent les arbres qui ne prennent même plus. Que j'ai vu, attendant des pièges, c'est des pièges qui m'ont monté, ce n'est pas qu'ils m'ont monté où on a coupé le bois. Moi j'ai vu en faisant ma prospection des pièges qui détruisent plus. Moi je tue, je ne peux pas tuer plus de 50 gibiers un jour. Pourquoi? Ça va pourrir. Moi je sais ça. Mais ils abattent des arbres qui ne se portent pas et ça pourrit. Le bénéfice à qui? C'est à eux ou bien à nous.
The problem comes back to the big business interests of the French logging companies, an industry that now fuels the bushmeat trade and threatens to destroy the habitat of the great apes.
They are really taking without replacing. We don't have any tree replaced by the French white after taking the natural one. We don't have anything replaced out of the wood after you must have taken the wood. So for that I see, we are in the forest. We are in the forest. We see how the forest is going. It is going. But we don't have any replacement. In future, I believe if I can see that they are taken today, tomorrow my son will not see. And tomorrow I will not know what my son will be doing. Maybe for the moment they can say I'm benefiting because I'm moving on their road. But the road will come inside the forest, back. But the natural would not exist again. What are they replacing? What are they replacing after taking the wood? Nothing. So I don't appreciate that at all.
For many years, this area has been logged by French timber companies, and though the poachers have gained, it's not only the apes who are threatened. The logging routes cover the entire eastern region of Cameroon. The clouds of dust from the constant rumble of passing trucks are choking the forest, not to mention the people who live in it. It's not just the backer and poachers like Joseph who live in the forest. There are also traditional Bantu villages who've lived in harmony with the forest since the Stone Age, but who now face annihilation by the spread of the loggers. At Atchek, a logging road cut the village in half 20 years ago. The local community has never been the same since. The people of Atchek have been plagued by clashes with a French logging company, Sebec, that dominates the area. In the 1970s, Sebec promised to build schools, clinics and hospitals in return for the trees they cut down. So far, they've done nothing. In 1993, the villagers, in desperation, formed a protest movement and barricaded the road to stop the trucks passing through. Probably the first such protest in African history. Augustin has come to find out if Joseph is right when he says the logging companies are the real cause of all the problems. The villagers have no hesitation telling him what happened.
C'était ici.
Où ça?
Ici.
Donc c'est ici que vous aviez posé les barricades.
Oui. C'était ici.
Et qui gardait les barricades?
Nous-mêmes. Et moi-même, le chef du village.
Vous avez posé ça comment? Vous pouvez...
On a posé ça comme ça.
Le long de la route ici?
Oui.
De sorte que la voiture ne pouvait pas passer dessus?
Oui.
Et quand les militaires sont venus, ils ont dégagé la bille ou bien...
Non, nous-mêmes.
Donc ils vous ont obligé à dégager la bille?
Oui.
On n'a pas le pouvoir de parler. Si un jour on vous présente le canon comme ça, vous pouvez supporter le canon. Ça vous fait peur.
On la mort.
Ce n'est pas nous qu'on va te dire. C'est toi.
Vous avez vu?
Moi-même, je dois renvoyer la nouvelle avec vous.
Quelle est la nouvelle maintenant
que maintenant, c'est comme ça qu'on doit vivre avec les gens dans le Cameroun aujourd'hui. C'est ça que le chef parle.
Christophe Tessadouala was the village policeman when the barricades went up. He was put in jail during the protest along with over 20 others. 2 are still unaccounted for. Christophe became the spokesman for the villagers, so the authorities stopped him coming back to Atchek. This is the first time they've seen him in 2 years. The barricades were destroyed by government soldiers anxious to protect the logging companies. The raid was swift and brutal.
Qui étaient venus, ils ont encerclé Atchek la nuit. Ils ont pris d'autres villages d'assaut. Ils nous arrêtaient de village en village et de maison en maison. Ils nous fouettaient. On était menottés. 2 sont morts, quoi. Ils ont pris 27 jusqu'à Amban, à la gendarmerie. Et de la gendarmerie, on nous a pris à 5 pour la prison ici à Batouri. Nous avons passé 3 mois de prison.
Merde alors, c'est marqué aussi dans l'enquête. Si là, on m'a tapé le... La crosse des armes, ici là, ça m'a cassé tout. Je voulais arrêter les dents là comme ça. Allez, un gendarme arrive, il me tape aussi, je ne suis pas tombé.
Donc, il n'avait pas pitié de votre
merde alors.
Oui, moi-même, le chef du village, que j'ai tué qui? Pour demander les dons du village.
Si nous on demande les dons là, c'est vous qui nous avez serré de demander ça. Si on demande encore ça, à quoi bon de venir nous menacer? Hein? D'après ça, ils ont pris tout. Tout. Ici là, il n'y a plus rien.
Since the protest, there's been no work from the logging companies.
Nous sommes exploités. Vous voyez l'arrivée de ces sociétés forestières, les relations que nous avons avec elles. Bon, c'est justement ça. Les ménages se gâtent et nos enfants même, nos garçons, qui ne peuvent pas être utilisés dans ces sociétés forestières, qui n'ont pas accès à ces sociétés forestières. Qu'est-ce qu'ils font? Ils vident le village. Ils s'en vont chercher le travail ailleurs. Parce que les gens ne vont qu'en brousse. Ils partent suivre les chasseurs. Ils partent eux aussi apprendre à faire la chasse pour chercher à être aussi braconniers. Ces braconniers, ces gens qui viennent avec leurs fusils et qui tuent tout. Donc ils terminent ce que nous avons comme animal. Nous-mêmes, nous allons manger quoi? Nos petits-enfants vont manger quoi?
The people of Atchek have always practiced a simple subsistence culture, catching only what they need using traditional weapons like the crossbow. They're frightened by the poachers' guns and worried as local wildlife becomes more and more scarce. often they catch nothing. And it's not just the great apes who are at risk. Christophe is convinced he's seeing the destruction of an entire way of life. To survive, the people of Atchek will have to change. The logging companies have steadily destroyed the vital assets of the local economy. All the valuable trees have gone. Above all, the mawabi tree, long treasured as the source of a fragrant oil that formed a central part of their diet and played a key role in local trade.
Mais le Cameroun misère. Et le Cameroun se meurt. À cause de qui? À cause de quoi? À cause des Français et de la France. Vous voyez, je parle seulement du bois. La France est actuellement le premier producteur du bois tropical. Ils ont le bois tropical, les Français? Non, ils prennent chez nous. C'est notre bois.
Every year, Cameroon exports £100 million worth of hardwood to Europe, about a fifth of the world's hardwood production. French companies monopolize this export trade. The biggest importer of tropical hardwood in Europe is Britain. Hardwoods are used to make furniture, conservatories, even coffins.
Does your company ever have any trouble with the local people?
Quite a bit. We will sometimes stop from working. They sometimes block the road so our timber doesn't go out. That's when they find out we are not doing what they ask us to do. So usually they have a way of controlling to make sure that we do what they ask us to do. You have the big exploiters like we are, and you have the little ones. The little ones are usually the ones that don't have offices and don't have parks like we do, where they can actually go and find out whether these people are doing anything for them or not. So they come to us as if we are the only ones who should do something. So depends on where you look at it. If you look at it from our point of view, we think sometimes they exaggerate a little bit.
Nous vivons, nous, ceux de la forêt, nous vivons de cette forêt. Cette forêt se confond à nous. Nous sommes même presque la forêt là. Et nous vivons d'elle et elle vit de nous. Bien, qu'on la détruise, c'est nous détruire. Qu'ils aident concrètement ceux qui sont là. Qu'ils aident concrètement, qu'ils aillent sur place, qu'ils aident ceux qui sont sur place. Bien, ceux qui sont, parce qu'il y a des gens qui sont des bienfaisants. Ils sont là. Ils envoient leurs aides ailleurs. Ils envoient là où ça n'atteint pas l'objectif.
The Whisper Sanctuary at Limbe on the coast, Jackie and Makolo's new home. Jackie shares an enclosure with other young chimps who've been rescued.
Makolo's adapted very well. He was really confident when he went in with them. He was fine. It's in good condition, other than his neck. I think he must have had a bit of infection around it earlier. Come here, come here. But no, the others were more scared of him than he was of them. But he's doing fine. It'd be good when we can get them back in the other nursery with the others. He does like hugs.
Yeah.
Hey, where are you going?
The parents of these 2 baby gorillas were shot by hunters. They would never have survived in the wild on their own. After his research trip into the forest, Augustin has strong views about what has to be done. It's unlikely Carl and Gary will agree with him.
Some time ago. And I think I will try to stress 2 observations, taking account the action in context. I will try to say that when you speak with this hunter in this place, to see what is their option and motivation they are there. You always see that the main problem is the economic crisis.
Of course.
And it's something you have to take in account in your campaign. And this is one of the questions I will try to ask to Carl.
To Mr. Oman.
To see, did you take this in account? Because you can say to people that it is illegal and all things like that, but he will say, I don't have any option and my motivation is to have some money.
Even the average hunter has to realize if he goes in the bush today and it has to walk 2 hours to come across a chimp or the gorilla, 5 years ago he walked 1 hour. In 5 or 10 years he will walk 5 hours. In 10 years there will be no more gorillas.
Gorillas and chimps are being killed on a daily basis. They're being eaten. Gorillas and chimps are very special animals, and they do need higher consideration than maybe a cane rat on humanitarian grounds.
In the field, someone tell me gorilla is a wild animal and you have to kill all them.
Sure.
Because they are not like me. It is invasion of European to come and make we don't eat gorilla.
Okay, so let me answer that one,
this kind of perception I'm used with.
Okay, yes. I mean, our campaign is sensitive to the fact that there is an attitude among the local Cameroonians that white faces coming into their country and dictating certain issues and how they should operate and how they should deal with them smacks of neo-colonialism. But at the end of the day, we've also come here and seen that up to now, nothing has been addressed. And therefore, if we have to upset a few people, and if a few people say, hey, they're just coming in trying to dictate what we should do in our own country, then although we will be very sensitive to that, we will continue, because it's about time somebody, some organization, addressed this whole issue on humanitarian grounds.
You know, the fact is, you say it's very hard to change attitudes and to get people on the grassroots level to change their life because of some notions we Europeans have. I accept that, but on the other hand, you accept that probably 40, 50, 100 years ago, cannibalism existed here. If the colonial powers had arrived...
I'm not sure that cannibalism existed here, because...
Existed, I said.
No, I'm not sure, because I'm working like a researcher.
Yeah.
And mainly in Cameroon, people that tell that cannibalism was in the East. I have traveled all over the East and never see any sign of cannibalism.
In your lifetime?
Yeah.
We're talking before your lifetime,
we always, there is a study of what happened before. The story study.
Yeah, sure.
But I'm not sure that cannibalism exists
I mean,
here.
it was wiped out very effectively. Probably doesn't exist today anymore. And people's attitude towards cannibalism changed very drastically because it's no longer an issue. Now, these creatures are 98.6% human. Where do we draw the line?
That is your opinion. On comprend bien que les Européens sont attachés aux gorilles et aux chimpanzés. Mais ce n'est pas la même chose pour l'Africain. Et on est prêt à aider à la conservation des gorilles et des chimpanzés, mais à une condition que les besoins et les problèmes immédiats des populations soient satisfaits, qu'on trouve une solution à leurs problèmes actuels. Si ceci n'en est pas ainsi, je crois que ce sera très difficile de parler de la conservation des gorilles et des chimpanzés. Et c'est facile parce que les Africains peuvent trouver des solutions si on leur demande leur avis.
For a copy, please send a large, stamped-addressed envelope to Survival of the Apes, P.O. Box 4000, London W5 2GH.